Hello and welcome to the Biz Coach Show, hosted by my Biz Coaches and presented by the TLG Group. Our shows focus on giving entrepreneurs the edge they need to succeed. Let's meet our guest for today's episode. Our guest today is Cindy Gordon. Cindy has spent the last 30 years helping small business owners, at first as a Canadian CPA and business coach, and now as a health insurance agent. She helps business owners find the right plan for their employees and budget. On average, she's able to reduce premiums by 25 to 30% while helping employees lower out-of-pocket costs for their medical services. Learn more at gordonhg.com. Well, Cindy, it is great to have you with us on the Biz Coach Show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic.
Awesome. Well, we are very excited to have you with us. And Eric, always great to spend time with you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, David. Likewise.
Awesome. Well, today we are excited to be talking about something that is top of mind for a lot of small business owners and maybe even a little bit murky, maybe something they don't fully understand or might even be a little bit scary. So really excited to have your expertise with us today, Cindy. We're talking about small business healthcare. And before we dive into kind of the meat of the show, I'd love to learn a little bit more about that transition from kind of CPA business coach now into health insurance. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out my professional career as a Canadian CPA and loved working with small business owners, just learning about their business, their challenges. And as a CPA, you're sort of limited in how you can help them. It's more of a numbers crunching type of solution. It came down to increase your revenues, decrease your expenses, you'll make more profits. And I knew there was a lot more because I saw my clients keep hitting the same roadblocks all the time. So I got certified as a coach and learned that it really is about us getting in our own way, through mindset, through beliefs, through so many different channels, that just being aware of those limitations or how we stop ourselves can just exponentially grow your business. So started working with a different type of conversation with my clients. Some of them were a little uncomfortable with it at first, but what it ended up transitioning to was working around corporate culture. Because when we connect to a passion, a purpose, a mission, and pull our employees into it, connect to what's important with them in relation to that passion or that impact that we have on people, it's like eye-opening. Everybody starts loving their jobs, and that's what we really all want. So when I moved to Phoenix, I had this great experience and capabilities, and it was a very different business landscape here. And not that it was a good or a bad thing, it was just different. So it was really finding how I could fit into the small business landscape here in Phoenix, which is huge. I mean, it's an incredibly vibrant business landscape. And I ultimately landed in a position where I was focused on women business owners, helping them break through that income ceiling because they have their own limiting beliefs based on society, their own experiences, and wanted to help accelerate their businesses. So, we were together, me and my clients, doubling, tripling their revenues. It was so excited. And then there was the pandemic. And we all know how women were impacted by the pandemic. Kids were at home, their employees' kids were at home. It just sort of changed the whole dynamics of what coaching, the availability of coaching. It went to a high priority for a lot of women business owners to a very low priority because they were just trying to keep their head up through the water. So, being an entrepreneurial type of person, I wasn't going to sit around and wait for my clients to come back for the opportunities to arise. So one of my coaching clients was an insurance agent and doing a lot of alternative products, working with small businesses and individuals. And I loved what she was doing because coming from Canada, our first experience here was with my husband's health. and him needing a test that he had the day before we left Canada, he needed an MRI, had the images and disc right in his hand. The doctor refused to do anything with it. So he had to get an MRI at the hospital. And we didn't know anything about insurance, but we figured we have good insurance from his employer. Yay, us. Then we learned about this thing called the deductible and ended up paying $1,800 for an MRI that we later found out we could pay $225 for. Wow. So it really comes down to, my mission is to educate and empower people to, again, be consumers of health coverage, health services, just like they are with any other product that they buy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and really, adapting, new city, different landscape, COVID, everything else that comes with that. So I think that in and of itself is pretty cool and something our audience can reflect on. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think just to kind of start out, maybe let's discuss what are some of the key challenges that small businesses and small business owners face when it comes to health coverage for their employees.
Yeah, a great question. Right off the bat, we're going to think budget, right? The cost of health insurance is high. It's expensive. And when you have 10, 20, 30 employees, that's a lot of money. We're talking, it could be $500, $600 per person. And with traditional insurance plans, the business owner is required to pay half of those premiums. So that is a huge factor that a lot of business owners, are hesitant about. Yeah. The other is the complexity. Health insurance, as we all know, is not straightforward. And unfortunately, I think it's done for a reason, which doesn't help people, the consumers. It helps the insurance companies. And then what ends up happening is the consumer ends up just looking at price because they don't understand the rest of it. So as a business owner, you're taking on this huge responsibility, right? You're providing your employees with a benefit, with value. And it's a huge undertaking to understand the coverage. So you're providing your employees with something that will take care of them at a price that you can afford. And they can afford too, right? Because they're paying a portion of it too. And then the last piece is the time, right? Because it adds to whoever is handling that responsibility, the enrollment, the COBRA, the onboarding, all of that stuff. It's a lot of time. We know that people who work in small businesses are overloaded with responsibilities from the get-go. So putting in another piece, it leads people to stop and think twice.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think as you talk about that, right, I think, from an employee perspective, right, the company has a benefits program and they can see the benefits to the employee of that. But I'd be curious, kind of based on your experience, what are some of the benefits for the business? Like, how does that benefit the business to offer these kinds of programs for their employees?
Oh, it's huge. Because we live in the US and we know that health insurance is a necessity. Okay. So when you're up looking for new employees, right, an employee is going to look at their options. Company number one, no health benefits. Company number two, yes, health benefits. Well, that's going to lean the scale in one direction, right? And also for employees, it's that affordability piece, right? They're looking at, do we want to, how much is the employer going to pay? Yeah. Is it going to be a huge burden or big chunk of my employee salary coming out? Can I get coverage for my family? But ultimately, for the employer's perspective, we want to have good benefits to attract, retain, and engage our employees. We want to have good employees that are working for the company because they appreciate what the employer is providing them, the acknowledgement that we're taking care of you. And that will, add to their commitment to the organization and keep them on board for a long time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think oftentimes people think about the front end, right, attracting new talent, but I think the point that you just made about retaining employees is just as important, and maybe something that gets lost in the consideration of healthcare. So thank you for bringing that to the surface.
Absolutely. I just want to add, back in the days, and I might be aging myself, we knew the golden handcuffs was that six-figure income, right?
Yeah.
Not anymore. It's health insurance benefits.
Yeah. Well said.
Cindy, so maybe we could, as you mentioned earlier, you said that the average cost for a benefit program for a business owner was around $600, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then they're expected to cover 50% of that cost. So in a company of, let's say 10 employees, it's a $3,000 expense to the owner. Is that a monthly, or is it a per pay period?
That's a monthly cost.
Monthly cost. Okay. So you're looking at $36,000 annualized. If you're a company that's doing $1 million in gross revenue, you're looking at 3.6. Do my math right? Is that 0.36? Yeah, it's 3.36, but it's still a chunk of money that you're adding into, and it becomes part of the benefit package that, to your point, that you put together. And then I know, having worked on that side of it as an employer, one of the challenges is the employees come to the table and they're like, well, I want to add my family, right? And so I know it goes up substantially outside of the initial employee once you add either a spouse or a plus one, the family, because they pretty much go employee plus one, and then employee, spouse, and then family, right? So
it's employee, spouse, employee, children, employee, family.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
And on those employee family, most employers, they're only required to cover 50% of the employee cost. So Correct. Typically the employee has to cover everything else when it comes to the family component. So that could quickly add up. I know in previous companies when, we offered it for the employee, as a matter of fact, early on, and this is probably early days of our last, David and I's last company, but we paid for the insurance for the employee. The company covered the entire cost. But when they added family, they had to pay for it. And if I remember correctly, we had a number of employees that had larger families, and they were, I'm going to say, $600 or $800 a month personal cost to them to have insurance for the family. And it was really cumbersome because at that point we were, David, I'm going to say we were probably paying $8 an hour plus commission for our average employee working in a retail store. Yep. So, I mean, they would make probably $2,000 or $3,000 in commissions for a decent compensation. But at $8 an hour, when that one check comes out and the commission or the health insurance is coming out, I remember one time an employee called me up and he's like, "Boss, I can't even put gas in my car with the money that's left in my check." Yeah. Now, the commission check was a big check and it would offset, but it was, how do you manage that for an entire 30 days? So, and I'm dating myself, but this is probably 15 years at this point. But
Eric, I can tell by the prices that you're talking about. $600 for a family is like.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much of that has changed at this point, and what does that look like today?
Yeah, family prices could be $1,200. 1,000 to 1,400, depending on the coverage.
Right.
But it's ridiculous. It's astronomical. The good news is there was recently legislation put through starting in 2023 called the Family Glitch Plan, whereby family members where they have access to employer coverage through a spouse, but it becomes not affordable to the family, they could still go on to the ACA, the Affordable Care, Obamacare plans, and get subsidies if they qualify. So that wasn't in place before.
Oh,
it is now. Okay.
And you said it was as of 2023?
2023. So that is wonderful for families that have lower income. Gives them the opportunity to take advantage of those subsidies that weren't available before to them. So that's great. But this is where I come in, and why I like working with small business owners is because we're so used to these traditional plans that are expensive, but there are alternative plans that are so much more affordable, much more affordable. And it also gives the employer the flexibility to pay as much or as little as they want towards the premiums, because they don't fall under the Obamacare rules, 50%. It allows them to pay, $100 for Joe, but the whole thing for Bob, like whatever they want. So they can give some additional advantage to key employees. They can really work with their budget in so many different ways. And again, we can customize it for each individual employee. But what ends up coming is there's certain criteria that affect the price. So when you have traditional insurance, you're pooling all of those risk factors.
Right.
In these alternatives, you're insuring each employee members separately. So if, Joe is 25 and has a wife and 2 kids, he's paying for insurance coverage based on his age and his health versus Sue, who might be 62 and has her spouse. Well, her burden is going to be a little different. The employer can merge these costs together and average it out, or he can play a little fair and say, well, we're going to charge you based on your status, your situation, your demographics, and make it a little more just to people who are, younger, healthier, whatever it is.
Interesting. And you said that's part of your products, or is that something that's changed in the industry?
That's part of the products that I offer, these alternatives that are, I think, such a better fit for small businesses. Because again, they're much more affordable and there's so much more flexibility and customization.
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, I think, as you're talking, right, it's resurfacing the comment you made about the complexity of health insurance and why it can be so scary for the small business owner. So I'm curious, are there any practical steps that you would advise a small business owner to take to navigate kind of the complexity of health coverage?
Yeah, the first thing is definitely find a good agent to work with. Find an agent that has a portfolio of different options. I think what we're most proud of at Gordon Health Group is that we don't just work with the business owner, but we work with the employees as well. Okay, we interview all of the employees who are interested in health insurance coverage to see what their needs are, because our plans offer a diverse range of coverage. Believe it or not, even allowing people to work with naturopathic doctors, which you would never find with traditional insurance.
Yeah,
and it's very important for a lot of people. They don't want to go the allopathic route. They want the more natural route. So it provides benefits and coverage for that, but allows me to understand what are the needs, what are the health issues, what are the concerns, and again, be able to say, here's an option that would fit the majority of people, but there's one person who, has really expensive prescriptions, has some surgeries coming up, things that you stop and you go, okay, we need to make sure we have full range of protection. With traditional plans, you're trying to fit people into a box. I want to customize it, hear what everybody's needs are, and customize to each of those needs. And for the employee, going back to, engaging and retaining people, there you go, because now you have an employer's message being, I want to take care of you. I'm not just providing benefits for everybody, but I'm taking care of you as a person, you as a family person, and what's important to you. And that's rare.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your particular programs, then you can offer something specifically different for, let's say, David, who's, I won't divulge his age, but he's got a young family. How old's Liam now? 12? 10. Okay. Yeah. So he's got a 10-year-old, right? But it's him, his wife, and his son. And then there's myself, right, on the other end of the spectrum, not quite as far out, but further out. And I've got a wife, and we, both of our kids are grown, outside of the 26-year-old, right? So it's just the two of us. But we also know, high blood pressure, things like that. We got to factor that into as we age. Some of the different considerations that are going to come up, right?
Yep.
Surgery. I'm probably going to have some surgery on my knee or my elbow from sports injuries that I didn't take care of from the last 25 years or whatever. But so to your point, then we could create a plan that would be more specific to my needs versus what David might need for his particular scenario.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely. And ultimately you're getting coverage that works for you, but at a much lower price, a much more affordable price than the traditional insurance. And what I love about the model that I'm using is there's also built-in income protection. So my clients and their employees, when they use the coverage, and that's why I like to partner with them, because, when I'm aware of things coming up, like surgeries, things like that, I can create a strategy that the employee or the family member will not only not have any bills to pay, but they'll have money left over in their pocket. So the insurance will send them a check for the excess benefits available to them, and they'll walk away with hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars.
Wow. So it's basically like incorporating a supplemental plan what would be a traditional supplemental insurance that you would get to do that?
And they are sort of considered supplementals, indemnity products, but they work so much better. I mean, I could go on with stories.
Right.
Client's employee needed a hysterectomy, ended up costing her nothing. Traditional insurance, she would have had the $5,000, $6,000 deductible to deal with.
Right.
Ended up costing her nothing.
Wow.
We were able to create a strategy.
And how does this work for someone who might be in a situation where they've already got circumstances that they have to manage through? Is obviously that affects the pricing, I would assume.
On the circumstances. So, it might be sort of a short-term thing. The first year we might want to put them on a traditional insurance plan through the Obamacare marketplace because they have that surgery in the next, month or two. Well, let's take care of that, give you a little bit of supplemental coverage to cover those deductibles, but make sure you have the protection you need. And then once you're all recovered from that, let's see how we can change things up. People don't realize that if you're on health coverage, you're never committed to that coverage for the year. You can always change it. They're committed to you to insure you for the year, but not vice versa.
Interesting. That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
In traditional insurance plan, sorry, say it again.
I just said it gives us a lot of flexibility.
I was going to say, in a traditional insurance plan, you don't have that level of flexibility, do you?
Say that again?
In a traditional insurance plan, you don't typically have that level of flexibility?
So you can't move employees off the coverage during the year unless they leave.
Right.
But as an employer, you can cancel the coverage at any point in time. Coverage.
Okay. Yeah, but when you're talking about 20 or 30 employees, that's a pretty significant transition to have to go through.
It is. Well, and here's another benefit with the alternatives. Every year, there's that time commitment of looking at the new plan options, creating new packages, sending it out to the employees. Guarantee the employees don't understand what they're looking at.
Exactly.
Right? Nobody is there to explain anything. So half the time they're saying, okay, this is the cheapest one. Let's go with that.
Right.
And then you have the person responsible of doing all the enrollments, like getting it all moved forward. Well, with these alternatives, you don't have an annual open enrollment season. It just continues. It just goes on. So that takes the bulk of weight of the extra time commitment off of
Right.
the employee who has to handle it, and the business owner to revisit the new coverages.
I was just going to say that because I know that every year we used to go through that with our previous company. And then in addition to that, we didn't have an official HR department. We actually outsourced through a PEO. And our challenge is that we had somebody in-house. We had one person I think at our peak, we were 1,400 employees. And we had one person in-house that was familiar, not even understood or knew all the different plans, but was familiar with them, and yes, we would go through the PEO to get the information and everything like that. But that was a cumbersome process. And as an executive with a large organization that I managed, I was, it's like, hey, you got to make sure that your team gets your stuff in. So I'd then turn around and go out to all my sales directors and say, hey, make sure your team gets their insurance submitted if it's not submitted by. And it was such an additional time suck, I should say. It wasn't a waste. It was just sucked up a lot of time. And to your point, it was a lot of extra effort and then somebody in-house had to kind of manage all of that, which was yet another. And and we were a bigger company. You take your average small company that was one of our target audiences, and they got between 5 and say 25 employees. They don't have anybody on the team that can do that. That's the owner or the owner's wife or spouse or whatever that's owning that responsibility and helping kind of facilitate that. Or it's an operations manager or something that has a full plate of things to do. And then, oh, by the way, once a year, we got to sift through this, and it takes about 30 days to get through it. So That's a pretty significant component of that.
And that's why we partner with our clients. We love when our clients say to us, feels like you're part of our HR team. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. If, I say to them, getting a new employee, perfect. Give me their information. I'll reach out to them. I'll find out, what their needs are for their health coverage. I'll get them enrolled. I'll take care of all of that. That's part of the concierge service that we offer to our clients because they're busy enough. This is not their area of expertise. This is our area of expertise.
Right.
So let us handle it because it takes us no time at all. We file claims for our clients and their employees. Just however we can lessen the burden, that's what we like to do because it's quick and easy for us.
Right.
It's a lot of time off of their plate and they have better things to do. More important, they got to focus on their responsibilities, generating revenues for the company. They're busy enough. So let us partner in that way. And that's what we love to do.
Right. Yeah. I remember literally having times where employees would come to me and say, boss, what insurance should I sign up for? And I'm like, I can't.
And how did that make you feel? Right.
And my nature is that I want to guide and help, give them some advice, but I'm like, yeah, I'm just opening a whole big can of worms that I don't want to open right now.
And that's part of the responsibilities that a lot of business owners feel like I'm making a big decision for my employees, choosing these health coverage plans. Right. Yeah. It is a huge burden. And that's why we try to break it down as put as simply as possible and tell them the pros and cons. We do like financial explanations. Like, here's what happens if somebody goes to the doctor. Here's what happens if somebody, needs a surgery, has a catastrophic accident. And we show them how the employee would be affected by it financially.
Right.
Because that's what they care about.
Absolutely.
We don't want our employees, if they have a catastrophic accident, to be burdened with, $5,000 or $7,000 bill from this deductible, and then not have a salary because they're out for a month or two because of this accident. We can't afford as a small business to continue their salary. They might have disability insurance that's going to give them, $1,000 a month or something. That's not really going to help them.
No.
Then I show them that our plans, if somebody has a catastrophic accident and is in the hospital for 20 days, you would have tens of thousands of dollars paid to them. I mean, that's life-changing to the employer and to the employee.
Yeah, and you bring up a valid point too about the employer in that scenario. It's like to your if we lose somebody, I got 5, 7, 10, 15 employees, and somebody's out for an extended period of time, I have to backfill that. I can't let the other person go, right? But I do have to make sure that somebody's filling that gap somehow, some way, whether it's a temp service or some other solution. So I'm incurring that cost.
Yep.
All right. I still have my other obligations. I'm probably giving them vacation time. And I know a lot of my clients, they're like, well, I'll give you a little extra time, even though you didn't have it. Right. And because as a small business, those are things that you sometimes have to make those types of decisions. Absolutely. And consequently, they find themselves in a situation where they're carrying that financial burden as well, or at least helping to offset that. And in the meantime, that's a drain on the small business owner.
Absolutely.
Not only from a financial perspective,
that the insurance company would come to bat and help,
right.
and just the layers of different coverages that traditional insurance don't offer.
Right.
There's built-in life insurance policy for an accident. There's catastrophic a critical illness coverage. I mean, we incorporate so many pieces, additional coverage that employees want and value, and it's still so much more affordable. So, it's like employers don't know about these options. And that's
right.
what I love to do, is just educate them. If it's not a good fit, if they're not comfortable with these types of changes, because not everybody is, right? It's not familiar to them. No problem, but just get educated, right? Just see what the alternatives are, and then you can make an informed decision.
Right.
Yeah, as you're talking about, trying to get the best coverage for the price and maybe offsetting some of that cost, I'm just kind of curious, are there any government programs or initiatives in the U.S. that small businesses can leverage to try to make that healthcare more affordable?
So for traditional insurance plans in the state of Arizona, there is a subsidy that you can get, a tax credit that you can get from the state government. The problem is it still ends up being expensive, even with that tax credit. And a lot of companies, it's a pool of money that the state offers. So if the pool has been drawn on, depleted for that month or for the next couple of months, because they fill it at certain times, then as an employer, you have to wait to start your coverage until there's money in the pool.
Wow.
Okay. So, you might be holding off benefits, but yes, it does help reduce the price. But when you're starting with a high price compared to an alternative, you're still not coming down to that same level financially as an alternative will be.
Okay. Good to know. Well, as we're talking about, I think at the heart of most small business owners, they want to provide that, great coverage, that comprehensive coverage. But going back to your CPA roots, right? At the end of the day, you've got that bottom line, and trying to balance those two can be really tricky. So any advice for how to go about getting that comprehensive coverage without necessarily going way over budget and spending too much on health insurance?
First of all, have a budget.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's
Cindy, would
you know your numbers, key to know what you can afford, and taking into consideration, you had touched on this, Erica, what is affordable to your employees?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that is essential. But I think it really is important to, like any type of product that you're buying, be informed, right? Get as much information as you can, and stay high level for sure, but just know the options, know the pros and cons of each, know the financial impact on the organization, on the employees, and then you can make a better decision, a better choice. Yes, budget is key, but we also have to remember that there is an implied value to employee engagement that business owners don't necessarily take into the calculation.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to add that. That's probably as much of an opportunity. Having coached yourself, you recognize that, right? I mean, sometimes the biggest challenge for a coach is getting an owner to get out of their own way, right?
Absolutely.
Because they can often be the bottleneck.
Absolutely. So think about what is the value, the implied financial benefit of an engaged workforce because you're providing them with health coverage or benefits that are meaningful to them. And what is the cost of turnover, right? Because that's huge too. I think statistically it's like 150% of the salary. We need to take that into consideration. So if we, can pull those numbers out of the financial statements, okay, those estimates of what was the cost of my turnover last year, what would be the additional value of employee engagement, higher employee engagement? Well, I think there would be a bigger budget for health insurance.
Yeah. Well, and I can speak to that. When we did that at my previous company, we should say our previous company, but when we did that, we backed into, now there's some extrapolation there, but basically we backed into our turnover at that time was 143. Don't quote me exactly on that, but it was in the 140% range of turnover for retail environment, which that's high regardless, but at retail, it's not uncommon to be close to 100%. So we then took that and we compared that against we were a wireless retailer. And we compared that against the corporate stores, and theirs was in I want to say around 50%. Might have been a little bit less than 50%, a little bit more, a little bit less. But it was basically we were riding close to 3 times the turnover. So we backed into that and we figured in, okay, what is it costing us in training time, right? David was the director of training. So, how much time did we spend on that? And I know he had to contribute some, statistics on that. Then we backed into, okay, lost sales. How much lost sales do we have? Because we're constantly training brand new people. What's the lost and, incremental sales opportunities? And we backed into a number that we came in, it was north of $1 million. And the crazy part about that $1 million is that goes right back to the bottom line. There's no hard cost associated with that.
Exactly.
It was literally just lost opportunity and missed, things like that, and additional resources having to be instituted. So literally, we were already paying for the training. We're just having to do more trainings. We're paying people for time spent to be trained again, as opposed to having been trained and then just giving an advanced training. So we were missing out in so many different areas, and we backed into about $1 million savings. And I think it took us 2 years, but we were down south of the 50% turnover, and we were able to do that. I think it took us about 18 months to get there.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was that study, to your point, Cindy, that forced us to recognize we've got to fix this. We knew it was a challenge, but you don't really, to your point, until you do the analysis and do your due diligence, you don't realize the impact that it has. So if your turnover is affected because you don't offer benefits, you don't pay the right compensation wise or something like that, and you're having high turnover, you have no idea how much that's impacting your business unless you really sit down and analyze how many other missed opportunities and all the other factors that play into that.
Absolutely. And for so many businesses, it also impacts the customer relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And lost opportunities in revenues because you don't have that consistent, engagement with the client. They're starting over with a new, who was it? I think it was, there was that company that Dan Price, he offered everybody in his workforce a minimum salary of $70,000. And everybody in this company is going out of business. And it just changed the whole company because turnover went away, employee engagement skyrocketed. People were becoming advocates of the company. So revenues increased. I mean, it just changed the whole dynamics, the financial, the growth, everything of the company. And it was just this message of, hey, we're here to take care of you. We care about you.
Right.
And when that happens, that message is relayed to employee and actions back it up. I mean, the people who really don't fit into that, they fall away to the wayside, and you
Yep.
get the right people in, they stay, and they help the company grow like exponentially.
Right. Well, and you referenced it earlier. You mentioned company culture. That was at our previous organization. That was a big factor. What our culture was, more specifically, what we hung our hat on as our culture. Right. We clearly identified what our mission, vision, values were, but we also clearly identified what our culture was, and we reinforced it on a regular basis.
Yep.
And that was a big component of that, because it was, it constantly reminding employees how we expected the company to operate. Even though somebody might not be looking over their shoulder every moment, they recognized, because of the culture tenets that we referenced, how we should be operating the business. That was a big factor, but that plays out in so many different ways, right? And they become stewards of the business, and they feel obligated to do the right thing for the business. And
Yep.
and it's productivity factors. There's so many different ways that it plays itself out.
And actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely. Yep.
So when you have the actions that back up the words, it's great to say, hey, this is who we are. We take care of our people. But when you actually show them, this is how we're taking care of you, by paying you fairly, by giving you good benefits, by giving you time off, whatever it is, right? Flexibility, whatever it is that you hear is important to them. If you respond to them, I mean, that's golden.
Yeah, agreed.
Absolutely golden.
Awesome. Well, I want to touch on, there's a lot of pieces of this that we're kind of, working our way through. And so we've talked through budget. We've kind of talked through exploring different coverage options. But one of the things that you mentioned, and Eric, you kind of expressed some pain points on, was, once you have these solutions, there's a piece of this, which is educating your employees and communicating these programs effectively to the employees that you have, and making sure they actually enroll in these benefits and use them, right? So maybe, if you don't mind, just share a little bit about that. If you're a small business owner who's watching this or listening to this, and they're thinking about, okay, man, how do I go about, getting this across to my employees? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I can speak to how we do that with our clients. Because like I said, I think, and again, this is our culture. This is, the essence of our company is we are going to meet with each of the employees to first, in the back end, to find out what their needs are. But once the business owner has decided on the plan that they feel is right for the organization, for the employees, however they want to create it, we're going to be partners with the employees. They have a number they can text. I'm always looking at that number to make sure if they have a need, they can contact us. They can get the answer, the direction, the guidance to get the most value out of their coverage. We try to communicate on a regular basis through newsletters, blogs, reminders, things like that. We don't want to inundate people. We don't want to overwhelm them with information. But the main thing that we tell them is, look, whatever coverage you have, it's confusing. You don't have to be the expert, because we're here. The only thing you have to remember is how to get in touch with us and to get in touch with us. That's the only habit you need to build. Reach out to us with any type of questions, because that's the most important thing. And, over the past couple of years, we've been able to see trends in the types of things that are important to people in their coverage.
And it's changing.
It is, because we have a very different change, a different demographic in the workplace.
Yep.
So mental health coverage is essential to have available to employees. Our plans cover that in two different areas. Okay. The way we build a plan, our favorite plan, will provide an employee with 32 mental health visits a year if they want to take advantage of all of them.
Wow.
32, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Right? So that's important to them. they want to have accident supplements because they're young and they're active, right? Chances are they're not going to get sick. They might, fall off a skateboard or a scooter or something like that. They want to go to naturopathic doctors, right? So
Right.
again, our plans are chiropractors, naturopaths. They want the more holistic route. Our plans provide that option to them. So it allows them to work with any provider they want. It gives them that flexibility of choice. But ultimately, it's about just turning to us. We will guide you. We will partner with you. We will educate you. And we will make sure that your financial risk is as low as possible should anything happen to you, or should you need major, or should you need any type of health services.
Right. Cindy, quick question for you. If I'm an employee at an organization that has a traditional insurance plan and I'm not happy with that insurance plan, is it possible to go to you directly, or is it only an option through a business owner?
No, absolutely. I'm more than happy to work with individuals and families as well.
Interesting. Okay. And it's competitive, I would assume then?
Same rates, whether you're getting my plans through an employer or getting
Wow,
it direct.
okay.
Absolutely.
So self-employed would be a good category for you as well then.
One employee company is a phenomenal market
Okay.
because I have such a different range. I mean, if you want an HSA plan, if you want, robust coverage, whatever your needs are, I
Right.
have just a variety of different plans that can fit. And again, being able to offer an array of options to employees is always a good thing, but
Sure.
having someone they can turn to understand the options so
Right.
they know which plan to pick that fits their needs.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I as I think through that, I think of all the real estate industry, the mortgage industry, all these solopreneurs and independent business owners, things like that, where they're one person teams or small 1 and 2 and 3 people teams. That would be a huge opportunity for them to be able to find affordable insurance. Because I know, generally speaking, self-employed, that's one of the big hangups that most people have, is they're like, well, I can't not have insurance.
Absolutely. And even if there's, one additional employee, you still want to help them out, right? You still
Sure.
want
Yep.
to show your appreciation of them.
Right.
Easy. That's something that we love to do and work
That's
with
great
small
to
business.
hear.
Yeah. We love to work, our range is like 1 to 35 employee size.
That's your target. Okay.
That's a good fit for our plans because once you're sort of moving past 35, then you're getting closer to 50. You're on that growth trajectory towards 50, and that's where you have, those more stringent rules that come into play. We could still work around the rules to a good extent, but we want to stay in our lane and work with the right size company that we can service the way we really like to.
Right. I don't have the statistics off the top of my head, but I know that the large percentage of the 32 million businesses in the United States that, like, I want to say it's close to 80% do less than, it's more than that. Sorry. It's more than 90% of them do less than $1 million a year in gross revenue, which means likely they're less than 35 employees. There's not too many businesses that can do $1 million a year in gross revenue and have to do less than $1 million in gross revenue and have 35 employees.
Absolutely.
So that means 90% of all small businesses out there should be paying attention to what we're talking about today.
I agree. I also want to say, don't be so quick to think you can't afford it.
Right. Yeah.
Because again, we could do so many different things and work with any type of budget. Even offering an accident supplemental is better than not offering anything. Right.
Great point.
I have a not-for-profit, and I'm like, why wouldn't you find in your budget $31 a month for your employees to say, I care about you. Here's a supplemental. We're paying for it. We want, to just have that extra peace of mind that if you have an accident, you'll get up to $4,000.
Wow.
It's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
It's a no-brainer, $31 a month. Show me a company that can't afford that. And if we find them, I'll send them to you because they need your help.
Appreciate that.
Well, Cindy, you just touched on something that we may want to explore just a little more, which is, there are some kind of rules and regulations that small business owners may want to be aware of. So anything that you want to expand on there that maybe they should be thinking about and maybe be a little bit mindful of as they're scaling when it comes to their insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned two of them is that family glitch rule where employees need to be aware of the fact that they have the option for their family members to get coverage, get subsidies that may be available to them through the Obamacare plans. Might not be the best options available to them, but the cost savings, again, it's based on household size and income levels.
Yeah.
But with that said, also, family members don't have to go onto employer plans. I'd be more than happy to help them with their options. Obviously, I would first look at the subsidies that are available to them to see if that's their best option. And then we can look at alternatives or ways of supplementing. But definitely happy to help any family members. And then there's those companies 50 plus, definitely there are rules and penalties, potential penalties if they have coverage that doesn't fit the laws for companies of that size. So they have to be mindful of that, make sure that they don't have those penalties.
Great. Well, I think as we wrap up here, I think, just any success stories of maybe clients that you've worked with that have been able to find that balance of health coverage and affordability, and what were some of the factors that contributed to their success in that area?
So I think the success stories that stand out in my mind are more with working with the employees and helping them get the value out of their coverage, but then getting calls to say, I just got a check for $3,500. Who do I pay this to? And I would go, yourself, because your bills are all paid.
Yeah.
And this is just how the coverage works. And they're just freaking out.
Yeah.
Those are the success stories that I love the most, is, being able to strategize with the employees, obviously creating the right coverage with the employer, but really helping the employer show the employees that, yes, you do have great coverage in place. Yes, we did this intentionally to put extra money in your pocket, to give you somebody that is helping you navigate it so you don't have to figure it out yourself. We did all of this for you because we care about you. I think those are the success stories that I love the most.
I love it. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Well, as we've been talking, I just captured a couple of key points I want to review with our audience, and would just love to hear a little bit more about Gordon Health Group after that. But I think really one of the big things that I heard was when it comes to, selecting plans and communicating with your employees, educating them, really the message is don't do that. Instead, work with an agent or somebody that specializes in that type of coverage so they can help you navigate those plans, help your employees get enrolled, right? Answer their questions. Don't take that on yourself as a small business owner. So definitely heard that one loud and clear. So thanks, Cindy.
Yes.
Also, as you're going,
David, if I could just add, people don't realize that should be part of the agent's role.
Yeah.
Partnering with the business owner and the employees.
Agreed.
It shouldn't be just to sell and see you next year when it's time to renew. That should be the obligation of the agent to be there throughout the year for the employees, for the people on the plan.
Love it. Awesome. Awesome. Great addition. Thank you. And I think I also kind of heard in there, just making sure that you're aware of, as a small business owner, if there's government programs or initiatives, whether that's the state level, the federal level, right? And just being mindful of that, but also being mindful of the rules and restrictions, regulations, which change as well. And sounds like you do a great job communicating with small business owners and their employees about those changes, which is awesome as well. And then I think, just making sure that you're looking for different coverage options that meet the needs of the business, but really probably more importantly, your employees, whether that's the plan, the premium, the deductible, network, providers, even the type of medicine. I think that was a little bit eye-opening for me in working through those different considerations. And it's not a one size fits all, and there are options out there. So just appreciate all the insights that you shared with us, and would love to know just a little bit more about Gordon Healthcare Group. Anything that you want to spotlight or feature, or where can people learn more?
Yeah, we love working with individuals, families, small businesses from 1 to 35 people. And we love to educate. That's what it comes down to. Help people understand their options. I always say that our purchasing power has been taken away. We have been told that, trust the insurance companies, just give your card, but really, we shouldn't, because they're just concerned about their bottom line. Yeah. We got to be concerned with our bottom lines, and we have to know our options, be informed consumers, whether it comes down to health insurance options or health services. And we love to educate. We love to work with people to give them that information and to find the plan that's right for them. It's not about the plan that's going to give us the highest commission rate. It's what's going to serve the user, the client. That's who we are. We're here to serve.
Love it. Well, if you want to learn more about Cindy or the work that she does, maybe you have questions, maybe you're working through this healthcare conundrum right now, head over to gordonhg.com, and it's a great way to get connected with her. So Cindy, it's been great to have you with us. Eric, let's talk real quick about My Biz Coaches before we wrap up. Anything new or exciting over there?
David, yeah, we're, as you know, we're working on a super secret project.
I think I had the 5 NDAs and a blood pact, and
yeah, exactly. But yeah, we're excited about the progress we're making. Had some new updates on as we continue to grow and expand our coaching team. So, it's still to come. But excited to just kind of let a little bit out there that you get some big things coming as we prepare. And then just a reminder that in October, we'll have our next event. So we have a 2-day event in October that'll be, the first day will be free. We're working on 10 different speakers that we'll have available, talking about a lot of different things specific to the small business owner. And then the second day will be a paid event. However, it will be a workshop. It'll be structured as a workshop. It'll be a handful of those 10 speakers. We'll be offering actual 90 minute to 2-hour workshops. We're going to go through and actually fix some of the problems in their business live on the spot in the facility. So it's kind of a unique 2-day presentation. I think, David, you might even help me come up with that idea. But we're excited about that as well. So we're continuing to tease that out there to make sure we get a great turnout for that.
Awesome. Yeah, it's going to be awesome, and more information coming soon. So Eric, appreciate it. And again, Cindy, awesome to have you with us today, and hope you guys both have a wonderful day. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Cindy.
Our pleasure.